Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, brothers and sisters, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you're watching me from. Greetings from Voice of Restoration International. We are based in West Nile region, particularly right now we are here in Arua City, and we've been traversing the entire of West Nile region and Uganda at large. Today I want to speak in a commemoration of the World Suicide Day. Before I speak about suicide prevention, mental health, and human rights, allow me to begin not by a theory, but with my own journey. Because every conversation about dignity, if it's not carried on anything else, it should be carried on experience, because the weight is more heavy on experiences. Today I want to say there was a season in my life when rejection nearly broke me down. There was a season in my life when every voice around me said, you are not enough, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you don't belong here. And all that, and all these words cut deeper than any blade, deep inside me. These words stripped me of my worth. They left me unheard. They left me unseen. I walked through all these days when hope seemed like a rumor, and nights were like a despair. Everything was falling apart. Just like the Bible says, indeed, darkness endures for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Every night was a night of despair, a night of mourning, a night of tears. As a matter of fact, tears became my food day and night. In those moments, I came to understand, not in books, not in classrooms, but in my very bones, what many of my people have also been going through. It is from here that I realized, not only here in West Nile and even globally, there is that place of despair, which can become a place of prison, where silence can suffocate, where stigma can wound more than the illness itself. But even in that valley, there came a voice. Not a voice of condemnation, not a voice of shame, not a voice that told me I'm not good enough, not a voice of worthlessness, but it was a voice of restoration. A quiet voice at first, but persistent. A whisper that said, your pain is not the end of your story. Your scars can become seeds. Your rejection can become the very ground for which purpose grows. That whisper became a Voice of Restoration International. It did not begin with an institution with offices and programs, but it began as a cry of the heart, a cry of my heart, a community of survivors, truth tellers, and dreamers who refuse to let brokenness have the final word in their lives. It was born out of conviction that wounds, when shared, can become wells of healing for others and even for ourselves. It is from that place that Voice of Restoration was birthed. Upon the birthing, now 6 years later, officially 6 years later, but it has been over 10 years, but legally registering everything happened now after 6 years from now. 6 years later, here is where we are today. Why am I sharing this story? Because stories shape lives. My story is not unique. In West Nile, across Africa and around the world, countless men, women, and young people are walking that same valley. They carry labels that crush them. They endure silence that suffocates them. Many never get the chance to hear a voice of restoration. Men are silenced before they can speak. This is why I believe so strongly in the power of storytelling. Not as an entertainment, not as a casual memory, not as a human right tool, just for the sake, but it is a major human right tool. Because stories remind us that behind every act of despair is not a sinner to be condemned, but a human being longing for dignity, inclusion, and hope. Stories affirm that suicide is not about shame. It is about suffering that demands compassion. They break the stigma. They restore dignity. They open the door for healing when silence once locked in shut. And so, I'm not speaking today on this day as a distant expert, removed from the pain I am addressing. I am here before you as a witness of rejection, a witness that says yes, but also a witness to restoration, a witness to the truth that despair does not have the final word. Healing does, compassion does, dignity does. That's why in the year 2020, this was my first book, Overcome Rejection, Turn Your Greatest Dreams into Reality. After that, Hope in the Age of Depression came through. How to Thrive Amidst the Mental Health Challenges. After that, The Art of Dating and Courtship came through. Because after 8 heartbreaks, life is still here. After that, had the book, Broke by Choice. I've been broken, and I know how financial crisis can bring more crisis in the mental health space. Beyond the Job title is the baby among all the books that I have published. Finding Yourself in a career-driven world, Beyond the Job title. All of these stories are coming through. Why? Because there is still work that can be done. Why these stories? Because we believe in stories. Stories change narratives. Stories change a lot. Storytelling and personal testimonies carry transformative power in marginalized communities like West Nile, where silence and stigma too often define how suicide is spoken about, where mental health is a taboo for discussion. When someone tells their story, they are not simply sharing memories, they are reclaiming dignity. They are saying, I am more than my pain, I am a human, and my life has worth. This act challenges stigma at its roots because it recenters the conversation on the right to life, the right to health, and the right to be heard without judgment. Communities that hear these stories begin to reframe issues around mental health, issues around suicide, issues around normal life. So that when we see people with the mental health challenges, when we hear stories of suicide attempts and all of that, it is not because it is a moral failure, but as an unaddressed suffering. Testimonies make visible the structural injustices, the poverty, the displacements, the conflict, the gender inequality that compound mental distress. In this way, storytelling becomes not only personal healing, but also a collective resistance. That's why, as Voice of Restoration, we are committed in addressing issues around mental health. We are committed in issues around suicide prevention. We are committed about issues because life is here. We are pro-life. We believe in pro-life. There is life. Even when we go through different challenges, even when things fall apart in our lives, there is still hope. Colleagues, wherever you are, never give up on life just because things are falling apart. Help is available. Help is available. As we commemorate the World Suicide Day, Prevention Day, it is my call to all of us. Suicide is not just a story of shame. It is a story of suffering that calls us to act with courage and compassion. In the valleys of despair, in the silence of stigma, in the cries of those who feel forgotten, we are called to stand as witnesses and defenders of human dignity. In my own journey has taught me everything. It has taught me that even when there is pain, pain can be transformed into purpose. Rejection can be reshaped into restoration, and silence can be broken by voices that insist on life. So, Let us tell our stories. Let us train our teachers. Let's train our religious leaders. Let's create communities where no one suffers in silence, where mental health is recognized as a human right, because despair does not have the final word. Healing does. Compassion does. Human dignity does. Otherwise, thank you so much. Help is available. Help is available. We need to reach out. Voice of Restoration is here, committed. I know many of us, we've been through trauma. We've been through abuse. West Nile region as an example, for instance. We've suffered wars right from 1979. We've suffered many atrocities here. We've mass graves here in West Nile region. We've suffered all kind of struggles around the impact of wars. We were once refugees in Sudan and Congo. But even right now, we are hosting the largest group of refugees here in West Nile region. A lot is going on. People are thinking of suicide. Why? Because things are falling apart, because hope is lost. I have good news. Help is available. Suicide comes when we don't see any hope beyond what we are able to see. But there is still hope in the age of depression. Suicide comes at the climax of depression, when depression has gone to the climax. But the good news still is, Bible says, anxiety in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. A good word makes it glad. A good word makes it glad. And it begins from hope deferred, which makes the heart sick. I know you could have been having some hopes for certain things, but then these things have never come to pass. You are not alone. You will make it. Help is available. Otherwise, regards from Voice of Restoration. Together, we can bring healing. Together, we can bring restoration. Together, we can bring transformation to the glory of God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. See you next time.